Well, good morning, Beck. It is so lovely to meet you here. Welcome to the Red Hot Truth today.
Thank you.
Well, I really, when I met my husband, we had the best relationship. Like we were two peas in a pod, and people were constantly commenting how wonderful we were together. And just slowly over the years, I've noticed how our relationship and our marriage has diminished. And it's been 14 years now. And it was such a gradual process that I sort of didn't notice it. And then I started noticing it a little bit. And then I sort of said to Dad, come on, let's do something about it. But then we never really did anything. Like we spoke about it, but we never really did anything about it. And it's just now, especially because we have so much time to stop, that I'm like, wow, this is not the marriage I want. We don't have intimacy. I mean, Doug humps my leg all the time, but it's me. Like, get off
Sounds
the
like
leg.
a dog.
Right? And I'm just not interested in sex. I have no desire to have sex. And I just feel that there's no excitement anymore. We don't sort of see each other anymore. And I was looking around me and I was like, wow, this seems to be common. This seems to be a common thing. But then I thought to myself, I've got another 40 years at least with this man.
Yeah.
And I really want to have a good relationship. I'm just not prepared to have this bland, flatmate kind of relationship. And I put the word out for people who do have spicy and spunky relationships. And relationship coaches came to me. And I said, I don't want a relationship coach. I want the people who are actually living it, because I want to get that juice from them, right? And you are just both, which is so great. A relationship coach, and you've got a spunky relationship. So watch out, guys. This is it. So that's just a little intro, and I wonder if you guys who are listening can resonate with this, that you do have a relationship and you do love your partners very much, but you want more. And I just ask you to listen in and know that it can be better, and Beck's going to tell us how she did it. And that's really what we're interested in, is your experience. So let's start off and tell us a little bit about how you and your husband met.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, first of all, I so resonate with what you just said, because I've been there, and it's so cool that you caught it and are willing to do something about it. Because I think you just it's so often, hey, that you just it becomes so bland, and then you get to the point where it just fades out and then just drops off, and everyone just leaves the relationship. So. Yeah. I think it's so beautiful that you go, oh, I've got 40 years with this person. What do I do about it? I met my husband when we were 17. I'm 36 now. And we were doing a job called Peer Education. So we were both working for a youth centre, and we met it's so funny. We talked about this the other night, because when I met him, I thought he was 12. We were both 16. He looked so young. I remember going, I really like him, but he looks really young. He's too young for me. And reminiscing is such a beautiful part of a relationship. And so we met at we were both from different areas, and I love meeting new people. So I was super excited to meet a bunch of new people. And I was the only person from this other group. So there was one of me and 5 of them. And so I remember he said to me last night, I was so excited I met you, and he looked at the other guy and he goes, oh, no, the other guys have got no chance. So I'm in. I was like, I love how you just assumed that I was going to go for one of you. And so we just started a relationship then, and we were super young. So we grew up together essentially into a couple. Which is a whole other ball game when you're young and then grow into adults as a couple as well.
Yeah. Amazing. And when did you sort of notice that things weren't working for you? What were the signs that you were going, hang on, this is not what I want in my relationship?
Yeah, look, a few times in our relationship, but I'll talk about probably the most recent, which is probably just before we had Flynn. So we've got a 6-month-old baby, and we've been trying for a baby for about 5 years. And I think that part of that killed the relationship, because our sex life, for one, became so routine. And so it was probably about maybe 2.5 years ago that we just both looked at each other and went, this is not like exactly what you described. It felt really bland. Like it was just this routine, we're just friends living together, we're kind of coexisting, and we're great friends. So that there's nothing, it's kind of easy for us to live like that because it's so easy for us to get along. We're very different, but we have a good laugh together. We know how to have fun together. So it was easy for us to coexist. But we both knew, because we've had it before, both knew there was something more there that was missing. But like happened to you, it happened so gradually that it would have been so easy to not notice it.
Yeah, that's so interesting. And it's funny that I just asked that question and then something flagged within me and I thought to myself, wow, have I actually articulated clearly for myself what kind of relationship I want? Because I sort of went, oh, hang on, that's interesting. What is a good relationship for me? Like, what kind of relationship do I want? I don't even think I've even defined that for myself. I've sort of gone, you know what? I know what's happening now is not working. And very similar to you and your husband, Doug and I are great friends. Like, we love hanging out. We're just like buds, right? But what is it that I really want? And I wonder, have you defined that for yourself?
Yeah, I think we both did and came together to discuss it because it also kind of happened the same time that we started talking about having common goals and what we're going to work towards together. And funny enough, we did a vision board together.
Great.
Which is, yeah, I know, it's great. It's great. Everyone comes into our house and they're like, that, because it has like his goals on it, my goals and our goals together. And that came about because we wanted a baby, to be honest. And we were so desperate that we're like, let's try, what can we try here? And we thought, well, let's put that out there. But as a result of that, I suppose we had to discuss what we wanted out of having a relationship, because it's very important to me to be like, as a parent, to have a good relationship for my kid to watch, because I just think over and over repeat these same cycles. And I wanted to interrupt that to be like, to show our kids this is what a beautiful relationship can look like. So yeah, we had to sit down and have that discussion about what we both wanted. And because we're quite different, we wanted similar things. We've got similar values. So I think that's probably what makes it last, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So when you say you guys are quite different, how are you different?
Yeah. So I suppose we don't have any similar activities that we like doing.
Really?
Besides, yeah, I don't know what look, we like going to the movies. We like having fun. So a huge thing that my husband has taught me, which I was so resistant to early on in our relationship, is how to have fun and play in our relationship. I took things so seriously. Like, I don't know, I grew into this adult who thought that you had to be serious to become an adult. And so therefore, when he was trying to have fun, I thought he was being immature. So I totally shunned it for so much of our relationship. And then when I learned how to have fun with it and that life could be enjoyed, which is funny because I love having fun outside of the relationship, but for some reason I just completely disowned that part in the relationship. So yeah, we don't have that many similar activities. We're very different in the way, like when we have conflict, we're really, really different. I like to talk things out. He likes to withdraw. What else? We probably dress quite different. We like different music. We like similar food.
It's so funny because I'm just thinking of my husband. So Doug and I, the one thing we both have in common is we have a love of people. And me more than him. Like, I'm similar to you. I mean, for me, strangers are just friends I haven't made yet. You know, like, you put me in the middle of a room of strangers and it's like a candy store for me.
Yeah,
right?
me too.
And I'm like, yeah, bring it on. And Doug's a little bit more reserved. And it's interesting that this is coming out a little bit more now, right? Because there's also an 11-year age difference between Doug and I. So Doug's 11 years older than me. Yep. And so it's also coming out now where Doug's so when I met him, I remember him being very social, right? And now he's a little bit more withdrawn. and a little bit more shy. And I was reflecting, is that how he was? Or how I remember it? Was that how he was he has always been, but I just didn't see it. And it's really questioning for myself is the man who I thought I knew really the man I knew, or is he the man I wanted him to be? And that was a really big question. The question for me is I really need to see him for who he is and not for who I want him to be. And also by saying, God, I really appreciate his differences because he's not me. I'm not married to myself. Did you ever go through something like that?
Yes, massively. I honestly thought that it was a good thing. This is the term I used to use, that I lay-byed my husband. So I got him young so I could train him to be who I wanted him to be. And it's so horrible now that I think about it, but that is honestly the mind frame that I thought I had to have. Yeah, I thought that I had to make him into something, and he obviously rebelled against that majorly, which I'm so glad for, because I didn't want that. If that had happened, that'd be super boring. But honestly, the minute that I accepted who he was and for who he was, and understood that he could teach me so much, being a completely different human than me, he just flourished. Like, and he flourished in himself, he flourished in the relationship. Like, he became, it's like, because I loved him for who he was, he became another human. It was, and then I loved him even more. But I didn't give that the chance to happen before.
How did you do that? So I'm really interested in that, because I know myself, I like to be in control. I just have to be real, right? And I like to having things done my way. And then I shoot myself in my own foot because I control everything. I don't give Doug any control. And then I'm upset that he doesn't do anything. And then I've looked to change that behavior in myself. You know, honestly,
I'm laughing because I've been there.
I know, right? I know that's why you've been there, you've changed it, so I want to know. And also, I love what you say, like, how often have I heard women in jest say, oh, they've got another, or they just recently divorced or something, and they said, oh, good luck to the next woman because I trained him well. You know, and it really is this concept of we as women are responsible, like mothers, to train our husbands how we expect him to behave. So we're not the partners, we actually are indirectly their mothers. So how did you change your behavior? What did you do for yourself to give him that freedom to be who he is?
Yeah, look, control was a massive thing for me too, even down to the point of if he cooked, I say this to clients all the time, he used to cook dinner and then I'd go, oh, like, it's not great, you know, like you've burnt it or something. And then I noticed he got into this pattern of cooking and asking me for help, cooking and asking me for help. So you know what I had to do?
My husband does that too. Amazing.
I had to. This is what I had to do. It was hard, I'll tell you. I had to bite my tongue, and I had to hide in the other room while he cooked. And I said to him, however it comes out will be perfect, and then not criticize him. And then from then on, he's done things, because I think the minute that you feel, if you do something and someone criticizes you for it, you don't want to do it again because you're like, well, I'm going to do it wrong. You know, I'm not going to do it the way they want. So I had to be so conscious and present and be aware of what I was doing. That's all. And I just have to, I notice it come up more now as a mum as well, because when I first had Flynn, I started telling my husband how to parent. And then I had to really remind myself, I'm not his mum, he's Flynn's dad. He can parent as much as he wants, as much as I'm going to parent. So he has to do it his way, I have to do it my way, and then they can come together. And then we have discussions separately about what parenting looks like as a couple. But I had to allow him the space to be the parent that he needs to be, just like he needs to be the human he needs to be, rather than me telling him how to do it. Because you're so right, you get into this dynamic of mother and son almost, and that's not what you want, because that's the furthest thing from intimacy as well. Like, you're not going to, how are you going to have a good sex life if you're telling your husband what to do like his mother told him what to do? Like, it's just, it makes so much sense, common sense, but we do it.
Well, some men might like that kind of stuff, but maybe in the bedroom, but not in real life. I love that. It sounds to me like you were saying you became really conscious of your own behavior.
Yeah.
Did you always have that consciousness, or did you do some self-work on yourself to bring that consciousness? Because I found with me, it's really where it starts with awareness. You know, it really starts with awareness. This is what I'm doing. Also, then why I'm doing it. So what's the reason? What is this giving me? So when I control things, I feel safe because I control the outcome, right?
Yep.
And so knowing that about myself and then sort of reflecting on that and taking time. And that, I mean, I've been doing personal development for decades now, right? It's a continuous journey. I learn my truth more and more. But I wonder then, did you do some work on yourself? And if so, what did you do?
Yeah, massively. When we first started going out, there's no way I would have had any awareness that I was doing those behaviors because I was convinced I was right. And, you know, I have to remind myself consciously as well when we're having arguments that it's us two against the problem rather than us two against each other, because I don't need to be right. We need to work out what's going on and get to the bottom of it and come to a compromise. But yes, I've done years and years as well of personal development. What did I do? I've just done bunches of courses, really.
Oh, tell us some of the ones that you feel had a really positive effect on your relationship. Like, did you do any sort of tantric courses or anything exciting like that?
No, we haven't done that actually.
Well, I'm planning to do one, so you can come with me.
Yeah, I know. It's we've done one relationship course, and we did it in Western Australian Perth. It was called Relationship Warrior Code, and it was amazing. And it really taught us a lot about. I think what I learned the most out about that is the masculine and feminine, and how I was majorly living in my masculine and he was living in his feminine, and it wasn't working, which doesn't mean that can't happen for other relationships, but it was not working for us.
Okay, great. So before you go, so this is really what the Red Hot Truth is about, and I love that you bring this up. So, I mean, the Red Hot Truth is to give rise to this feminine by living our Red Hot Truth. And I really want to explore this a lot, actually, if we can really just sort of go into this quite deeply, because I feel that this is where a lot of things are going a bit, the energies are out of whack. And I remember Tony Robbins was saying, when you have things in common, your relationship works. But when you have different energy, you have passion in your relationship. And yet I even find myself now today, even though I'm doing the work on this, defining masculine and feminine energies by male and female, but that's not necessarily, that's not the case. It's just different. So tell us a little bit more about what you understand about, you know, the masculine energy and the feminine energy.
Yeah. Okay. So I think, you know, going back to that control piece, that had a massive part to do with things. So control and trust with my husband. So I was trying to control what he was doing. So, and I suppose what was happening in that, and that's a really masculine thing. And therefore I was taking up the space for him, trying to control things. So say, for example, if I'm telling him how to do something, then he doesn't get the space to be able to do it himself and have that ownership over it. So the masculine in me was trying to control a lot of things that were happening. And I didn't have, this is a really super simple example, but it changed our relationship, which is going to sound really weird. So he, every time he left the house, we left the house together, I'd say to him, do you have your keys? And while we were away doing the course, he said to me, I need you to trust me that I've got the keys. I've always got the keys to the house. You don't need to ask me every time. So now when I leave the house with him, I have to be conscious and not say anything about the keys and trust that he's got it. Because I was always trying to control that if we got locked out, I've made sure I've got my keys and he's got his keys. But he's never, ever going to forget them because he takes care of us. And it changed things massively for us because it showed him that I trusted him more. And that sounds like a really small, simple example, but it made such a massive difference for us, just those little tiny tweaks in our relationship. And I think a huge thing, I kind of had this, I had no idea that I had this guard up, but I did. I kind of had this like cage or brick wall around me that needed to be broken down and I needed to soften. And, funny enough, probably the best sex we've had was when we, at that course, in that night of the course, because I really lent into the feminine. I softened, I just became like this whole different energy, and he really stepped up. And in this course, they call it like he's the king and I'm the queen, and so I really felt this power, this soft power. It wasn't this like controlling, dominant power, but this real soft powerfulness from him. It was almost like he felt even taller than he is. And I felt like I could sink into his chest and be cared for. And so I knew I could let go fully. So I had to have that yin and yang to work. Like I had to have that power from him to know that I could trust and relax. And I had to relax so that he could become that powerful part. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. And I totally resonate with that softening, just relaxing and surrendering and letting go. And to do that, there really has to be, yes, I'm safe. I'm okay. Massive. And of course I'm safe with a husband. Like, why wouldn't I be? But there's still like, what's that about? It's just letting go. And so and also when you said he's the king and I'm the queen, before you said queen and you said king there, and I immediately I felt a thought come to mind going, oh, but then what are you, the weak servant? And I just feel now what's happened is that femininity is definitely being defined as weakness. Yeah. And we've had decades of it where we've overestimated the masculine and underestimated the feminine. And so when we're playful and we're soft and we're gentle and we're seductive, it's seen as weakness. Yep. And I feel that's why I myself, and I wonder if others can resonate with this is why I don't go there. Because I feel it's weak, and I don't want to be weak. I want to be strong. Yep. And yet there's real strength in surrendering. And that, ironically, for me, is one of the hardest things to do, is to just let go.
Yep, me too.
Yeah, it's interesting. So, so coming back to sex now, so you and I both follow someone called Esther Perel, who's just amazing. And I wonder then, first of all, what was your upbringing like? Because I feel our upbringing often influences how we have our relationships. So I wonder what your upbringing was like, and have you remodeled what you saw? And maybe for him too, has he remodeled what he saw his parents do?
Yeah. It's so interesting because we've only recently had this chat because we became parents, and I said to him, like we had this, so I was raised by a single dad, basically. My parents split up when I was 5, and my dad remarried when I was 9. And he remarried my stepmom. And so I'm probably like closer to my dad because of him raising me. And my stepmom and dad probably conflicts. They're not, their communication is not their strength. And like I witnessed that probably now more than I did when I was younger. And my mum she had different relationships, but she was in a relationship where her husband cheated on her. So I do remember that point in my life. I think I was about 15 when that happened, and being like, no man can ever hurt me. You're not going to do that to me. And I kind of hardened from that. So I think that affected me because I saw her go through it, and so I think I perceived her as weak in that moment. From my knowledge, my limited knowledge, like I knew what I was doing. I was 15. And I think, then I get into a relationship with my husband. I was like, don't you know, that's never going to happen to me. And my husband grew up with, his mum died when he was 15, so he was really young. And then his dad looked after them, but kind of went downhill from there. So that affected him. And yeah, interestingly, we've just had a chat about what being a mother look like and what does being a father look like, and we have very different ideas.
Sorry, Beck, give me a second.
That's all right.
That's all right, give me.
It had really different. So I was raised by a single dad who did everything. around the house, right? And so my idea of him is that he would be working and come home and do everything and keep helping. And he was raised by a mum who did everything. So then he's thinking, I'm going to stay home. He just earns the money and then he's going to come home, not do a lot, and I'm going to do everything. And so we had to really have a discussion that this is like, that's not going to work, because we're thinking that two completely different things are going to happen. So how can we both make it work for each other? So that's been interesting.
That's so interesting to me, because once again, I feel we are definitely influenced. We think relationships should just happen. The fairy tales of happily ever after. I don't know if anyone ever communicated this to you, but no one ever said to me, you have to work at your relationship. No one ever said, you work at your job, you work at your health, but no one ever said to me, you need to go and sit down with your partner, and have a discussion about what each other's expectations are. And that's really relevant. It's like, if you don't, you just have these ideas and you're not connecting, and then you just clash, but neither of you or neither of us have actually sat down and said, what does it mean to be a husband to you, and what does it mean to be a wife? And and also articulating that for myself is really important, and then articulating it to him. And I wonder how important also, there's a great book by Gary Chapman called The 5 Love Languages, and such a beautiful, simple book. And what I really loved about it is it talks about the way we love and are loved. Did you ever explore that and look at that for you guys, and how did that work out for you?
Yes, because that changed our relationship massively as well, because a love language is just a form of communication, and if you're not communicating in the way that the other person can hear you, they're not going to hear you, right? So, and we have very different love languages. My number one love language is acts of service, and his number one love language is gifts. So very, very different. So what I didn't realize is that I was giving love to him the way that I wanted to receive it, and he was doing the same. So I was doing things for him, but it wasn't reaching him as much as if I went to the shop and bought him home a chocolate, or like I just thought of him in the way of gifts. Like, I think sometimes people misconstrue gifts that you have to go out and buy a car for someone or something. It doesn't have to be big. It's just the thought that counts. And for me, if he does the dishes for me, that means the world to me. So it massively changed the way we looked at things. Huge.
Amazing. Yeah. So Doug and I, we're different. So my first two love languages are acts of service and words of affirmation, and his is physical touch and gifts. And my last love language is physical touch. Like, right.
Yeah, my last language is gifts.
Isn't it funny, right? And so it's so the opposite. So I have to remind myself to touch Doug. Like, I physically have to remind myself to touch him. But then what comes up for me is, if I touch him, then he immediately goes, oh, some nookies coming. And I'm like, no, I don't want sex. I just want to cuddle, right?
Yeah. I mean, even physical touch is interesting in itself, because even that you have to explore with your partner. What does that look like? Like, how do you want to be touched? How would I communicate to you the best? Like, is it just that I, give you a hug every day that I come in? Do I touch you on the arse? Do I, what does it look like?
Do I lick you?
Yeah.
That's so interesting. Yeah. And so really, it is really about communicating. Well, what does that physical touch actually look like to you? Because my interpretation might be different to your interpretation, and being open to that, and working at that and changing that. I did once interview, I've just jogged my memory a very long time ago now, a wonderful relationship coach as well. She was from Israel. And she was quite different, because I really feel that in the Western world, we really have the Anglo-Saxon viewpoint of sex and relationship, which really carries through. But she came from a different place. And one thing I said to her is, we need to communicate more in relationships. And she said to me, no, Petra, you don't. She says, you need to get more into your body. And what do you think about that? I feel I am so in my mind. Like, everything I do is mind. I dance and stuff, but I've almost detached from my body. I use it and yet there can be too much talk, I feel. Sometimes it is about touch and getting back in touch with the body. And there was one time where Doug and I explored. I said, well, I have to tap back into my body. It was something she taught me, is help me and, touch me in different ways so I can feel what feels right. But I just got so annoyed at that. I got so impatient with that. I'm like, you're not doing it right. I don't feel it. It doesn't feel good to me. I wasn't letting go. I wasn't surrendering. I wasn't being in my feminine. And yet I feel that that's really something that's really important to still happen. Did you guys ever go through that to get back into the physical side of things?
Yeah, I think that's something my husband's taught me as well, because I'm such a talker, and I used to think that you had to talk everything out and have to talk it out before you go to bed. So he taught me that, things can wait till the next morning, and usually when you wake up, you feel a whole lot different anyway. And two, I know that when we're not connecting, that if we have sex, we reconnect. I know when I know something's off, we have to connect in a different way physically. Massively. And I think, that's an important piece, what you brought up just then as well, because I think that, and this is probably bringing talking back into it, but probably examples like that you need, when you're having sex, communicate what you like and don't like. Like, I think that is sometimes ignored in a relationship. It's just like, I think we think of sex as like, okay, let's go. We do it. We do the act, and then it's over, and then we're done, and then that's it. Pull out, finished. Like, rather than
ma'am, thank you, ma'am. See you later. Yes.
Yes, the sentence that was coming to my head. Yeah, exactly. I think that's a really Western thing as well, because I think from listening to Esther Perel as well, she's got a whole different viewpoint on what sex should be like, and how it doesn't need to be this, like, it's almost a dirty word in Australia and probably America and the real Anglo-Saxon countries. We're really prudish around it.
Yes.
It's
interesting for me because the actual physical sex part is the last thing I'm interested in. I like the play. I like the joy, the journey, the play.
Yeah.
And we don't have that anymore. It's like, Petra, I'm ready. I'm humping your leg. Let's get in there.
Yeah.
And I'm like, whoa, like I do. Like, I just need some time here, I need some play. I need some excitement. And I wonder then, you said if we don't connect, sex helps us connect. But the one thing I know with me, like, if I'm out of sorts, if I'm not happy with the way my life is going, this has got nothing to do with Doug. If I'm out of sorts, if I'm not happy with what's happening at work and with me personally, I cannot connect with anyone else because I'm unhappy. I'm not able, I have not worked on divorcing those two. Or for me, it's just like, I'm not happy. There is no way I'm going to get relaxed into sex. And how have you found that?
I don't have a problem letting go. I think that, I don't know if I just did it once and then I realized that I got a good outcome, and so I just kept doing it. I don't know what the process was. I mean, it's interesting because usually the feminine has to connect and then they want to have sex, and the masculine connects through sex.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's the masculine in me that just I know that this act works, and I agree. It's not just the act of doing it and having sex. There is that whole, like sex starts in the morning. You have that communication, that connection, and the intimacy and the foreplay and everything around it that happens prior to the actual act happening.
Yeah.
But I don't have a problem. I don't know if it's I train social worker, so I know that I have to disconnect work to be able to survive in my life. So I've kind of practiced working on letting go of whatever I've held out throughout my mind to get on with other stuff and get it into my body physically, I think. Like I used to have a shower to wash off thoughts.
Oh, wow.
I knew that would then I would imagine them going down the drain, and then I could move on with my night and didn't have to talk about it.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. And I wonder if, because I suppose for me, if we the same way in one relationship, then could it be that we're the same in other relationships? I wonder how, what are your friendships like? Are your friendships quite intimate? Um, eh, I mean, yeah, so what are the friendships like, and are they a translation into your relationship with your husband? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I
Yeah,
wonder.
probably.
Yeah.
So I used to have a lot of friends and make tons. Now I'm really kind of picky about who I hang out with, but I've got very long-term friends. So I've kind of call myself a friend collector. Kind of picked people up along the way, and I've just carried them and carried them and carried them. My best mate, we've been friends we met in year 6, so since we were 12. So that's 24 years we've been friends.
Wow.
And we're really close. And I when I don't see her for, like, even coronavirus threw us, because we didn't see each other for 3 months. And we were like, this is just weird. Something's off. I need to see you. I need to connect. And I could hang out with her all day, all night. Our families could hang out together. We were, funny enough, this is really interesting, her husband and my husband went to school together as well. So yeah, we were at each other's wedding, etc. We're really, really close. And I love my girlfriends. I've always made a massive part in my life to keep them. I've never been one to get in a relationship and drop my friends. They've always been a huge part in my life and have continued to be, because I am very aware that I can't get everything I need from my husband. And I need to get that from a village, and my friends are a huge part of that village.
And how have you maintained those friendships? Because I know that, and especially now that you have baby, I know that a lot of women fill up their lives with so much. There's this constant response when I ask women, "How are you?" And it's like, "I'm busy." It's become like a status symbol. Like, I'm busy.
Yeah, it's like a badge of honor.
Badge of honor. And I'm like, when someone says that to me, the first thing I think is, you're not living your truth. That's really what it means to me, because busy means I'm allowing everything and everyone else to take up my time, and I'm not selecting who I'm spending my time with. So I wonder, how did you or do you maintain those friendships with our so-called busy lives?
Yeah, I used to say that all the time. And I had to stop myself, because I was like, I thought it was really cool to say that. I was like, I'm really busy. I've got so much going on. Anyway, sorry.
And the question is really, what are you busy doing? This is really my question. What are you busy doing?
I mean, look, to be honest, the beautiful friendships I have, I could not see them for months, and then I see them one day and it feels like I saw them yesterday. So I don't think it's about the amount of time that I spend with them. It's about the time that I spend with them being quality time. And because having a child has never made me more selective and more productive in my life, because I know I've only got limited time to see people. And so I want that time to be good, and I want it to be like really quality time. I want us both to get something out of it. I want it to be like, years ago, I got rid of any friendship in my life that I didn't feel like was this give and take equal relationship, because of the ones that I felt like were draining me. I used I don't even know where I got this from, but I just used this really simple measure that I went out with a mate, and if I left that interaction feeling drained, I didn't see them anymore. It was so clear to me. I was like, I don't need to hang out with you anymore. And it had nothing to do with that person being happy or sad. It's just their energy was draining.
Yeah.
And if that was happening to me, I said, I can't do it, because it was taking way too much from me. Yeah. And I obviously wasn't the right person for them. So I just ended those friendships. And it's happened quite naturally. And the ones that kind of gave me energy, I hang out with. And I feel like that it's quite equal. I think we both give each other energy. I hope I'm not draining anyone's energy by getting my own.
Well, if you are and they're sticking around, that's really on them, right? As long as you feel good, who cares? I feel fine. I feel so energized. And they're like, oh my God, I'm so exhausted.
Oh my God.
One thing I do notice with Doug, and it's come up time and time again in my friends' relationships too, is he doesn't seem to have any friendships. you know. And I remember when we were in Brisbane, living in Brisbane, and he was quite interested in managing a rugby club. And because I'm a great at networking, that's really my part in the relationship. I met this guy. I introduced him to a rugby club that was up the road from us. And my God, he just loved it. He just flourished to the extent where he would leave me behind to go hang out with his mates. And I'm like, Anyway, but he was just a different person. He was happy. He looked forward to life. He had a zest for life. And now he doesn't. And when he doesn't have friends, and trying to encourage him to make friends and encouraging him to get out there is really hard for me. And I struggle because he hangs out with us then. Like, I love having him along and having him hang out with me and my friends. But then I get this, I've heard that story before. You know, oh my God, And I said to him the one time, well, if you've heard that story before, you're hanging out with me too much, how would you get your own friends, right? And it really, I mean that. I mean, not in a disrespectful way, but, fuck off and find your own shit, right?
Yep.
And so how have you found it with your husband?
Yeah, that's so common with men. I have so many friends that say that. I'm super lucky, I suppose. Because I was so close with my friends, I've always pushed him to keep his own friendships. And I suppose he's super lucky that, maybe this is what we have in common. He's also a friend collector. He has some friends. He's a really good group of guy mates. And like for the long weekend, they're going away. It's the first time he'll be away from Flynn for a night. But I need him to do that for him because I know that helps him. And we have a better relationship when he hangs out with his guy mates. So I absolutely want him to go and do that. And do whatever guy things they do. So I suppose I'm lucky in that way that he has those close group of friends, but I've also really fostered that in him that he needs to do that and keep up those relationships.
Have you guys travelled much? Did you guys grow up in Sydney or have you done any travelling?
Yeah, so we grew up in Sydney and we live in Sydney. So we haven't travelled and lived in, we've travelled, but we haven't lived anywhere else.
Yeah, so this is the thing, right? So I feel like for me, this is now my 10th country I'm living in. And
yeah, wow.
And so, and I'm very transient. Since being in Australia, we've moved to 3 cities. And so we're very transient. And it's easy for me to connect with people. Like similar to you, it's easy for me to connect with people. And yet I don't think it's as easy for Doug. And yet I want it so much for him because I know how happy I am having them. Do you ever have any clients that come to you with this kind of thing? Or is there any advice you give them?
I think it's really hard for men in general, to be honest. It's hard. Like, I just find that men, the only way I find people do it generally is when they have children and there's other fathers and they connect, but it's really hard otherwise for men to find other men to hang out with. And sometimes it happens. The only way else I've kind of seen it happen is the partners of my friends, if that makes sense. So, and then the men would hang out separately and then, so, the only advice would be to find like a hobby. I think that's the only way they kind of connect. Otherwise, you're meeting a guy at the pub and hanging out with him. But like if they play sport together or so I've seen like couples if they play soccer and then the other guys that play soccer as a club, like usually men connect through something, doing something physical. So I think that sport is a good one for that.
I think I'm just gonna have to leave it with Doug because he just needs to find his own way, and also focus on me and building those sort of friendships for myself. And then
cut him up out of your ones, then he'll have to.
It's just one of those things, right? It's this constant thing, but once again, it's probably me putting my own stuff on him. Like connection is so important to me.
It's a very good point. Yep.
And I'm probably like, dude, and I've seen him happy. Like I've seen a change in him, so I know. But if he doesn't see it as a problem, then why is the problem, right?
Yep.
This is another.
Maybe it's not a priority of his. It's a really good point.
Maybe, right? So with your clients, what kind of, if a client comes to you and says, look, we want to improve our intimacy, and how do you advise them to go and do that?
So I think that There's a few things. So this is hard to answer because everyone's so
So
individual.
different.
But
Yeah.
like a lot of the time, it's just this like lack of alignment and lack of like I do work on communication. I'm big on communication, and I think that sometimes we're saying the same thing, but we're just missing each other. And it's sometimes, I don't even know if it's that I'm a coach. It's just that I'm a third party sometimes to be privy to the conversation to go, hang on, you're saying the same thing, but you can't hear each other because you're just not even open to hearing each other. And I think that the intimacy has to start with smaller things before we can build on, even getting into the bedroom. Because some couples, like I had a couple the other night with such a cool way of describing it. They said, yeah, sex life has become like a schedule. And he goes, yeah, very sparse schedule. we all just cracked up. I was like, yeah,
I think that's most men. Well, I don't know, but I've heard a lot of men say that.
Yeah. So, and they want it to be spontaneous, and a huge part of like having a good sex life is, and Esther Perel, this is her word, she says it needs to be a balance of safe and predictable with exciting and mysterious.
Yes.
And I think often we fall into that when our relationship becomes, I know certainly mine did, when it becomes that beigeness, it's just that safe and predictability. So it's comfortable, it's good, it's not like nothing's irking me too bad, it's okay, I can go along like this. But there's nothing exciting about it. So like, how can you get that spark back, that fun back? And that looks so different for everyone. And sometimes I refer people back, what did it used to look like? Like, what did it look like before you lost it? Like, how can we get that back and then add a bit more?
Yes, and I really feel that what do you find that having, you've mentioned it before, having combined goals to work towards? So having our own goals and then having combined goals. So actually making life exciting, because the intimacy is part of life, the relationship's part of life, but it's not the whole of life. So generally I found our life has just become bland. It's not just the relationship, it's life. There's sort of nothing that really is exciting us. We're not looking forward towards anything. We're not working towards anything. And is that important to add the spice back in?
I think so, yeah. Because I don't know, you think about it for yourself, even if you've got like a holiday that you're saving up for, if you don't have a goal even with money, like it's hard to then accrue that money. So it's kind of the same thing, I think. If you don't have something to look forward to, what's the point of doing those things or doing those activities? Like, and the common goals I think is so important, because I think what often happens is couples like go along together in life and they don't realize they've got different goals, and then they get to this point and they go, oh my God, you always wanted to live in the UK? I had no idea. Like, I'm happy to stay in Australia. This is not going to work. And then when that difference in, if you have a difference in a major life goal or a difference in a value, sometimes you can't get past that. And then it does break the relationship. But it's interesting that you've just gone along for 20 years before you realise the other person, like having kids or not having kids, that's a massive one. I had a mate that got married to someone and she was really clear from the beginning, I don't want to have children. And he thought, I'll change her. That's not what she wants. She'll want to have children. And they got divorced a couple of years later because she didn't, and she almost had a kid just to be okay, for him to be okay with it. And then for whatever reason, they end up separating. And now she's with a guy and they've got 2 dogs and they're super happy. And he's gone and had family. But it's just so interesting that we lie to ourselves sometimes for so long.
Totally.
Yeah.
I mean, when I met Doug when I was 29, so I traveled a lot and stuff, and I had kind of clear idea of what I wanted. And I said to Doug, there's 2 things you need to know about me. I met him in New Zealand. I said, I don't want children. I'm not changing my mind. It's not going to happen. That's it. And I'm living in Australia. So if those 2 things don't work for you, right in the beginning of the relationship, I said, if that doesn't work for you, then this is going nowhere. Like, just stop. Yeah. And he's like, yeah, I'm easy, because that's just easy. It's an easy go, right? And he did say to me one time, oh, you've got till I'm 45 or something if you want to change your mind. I'm like, I'm telling you, I don't need to change my mind. But he says, if you do choose to, like, that's the cut-off day for me. So, but it's interesting, and how couples don't have that conversation and don't communicate. But I also feel that a lot of times maybe we don't articulate that for ourselves. We don't know that for ourselves. We don't make those decisions for ourselves. And that's when the truth, we don't know our own truth.
Yeah, and it's very true. Yeah.
And then all of a sudden we're like, oh my God. And then when we do find it, because I find age is also a beautiful teacher, isn't it? Like, I don't know if you found that as I've gotten older, I've learned so much more about myself.
Yeah.
Is that, oh wow, like, you know, these things don't work for me anymore. Or they never did, and I was never aware of that. I wonder also, just lastly, how important is it to commit to making the relationship work?
No, like everything, because I know if I have a couple come to me, that's the first thing I explore. If they're both not committed to making it work, no amount of coaching in the world is going to help.
Yeah.
Like, they need to both be committed to, you know, making stuff work. It's massive, because just like anything, you know what I mean? Like, I just think you have to commit. It's like, I did this personal development course once, and you had a arrow in your throat.
Yeah, that was intensive. What was that called? I did that too. I saw that on somewhere. Was that intensive? No, what was that? Anyway, you put an arrow in your throat.
I think it was called Personal Success Intensive that I did.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, I remember that.
And can you still hear me? One of my
yes, I can still hear you.
So, and the whole purpose of that is, if you don't commit to it, if you hesitate, you're going to really hurt yourself. So you had to really commit and go forward. And that was scary for people. And I think that that's such a good analogy for life and relationships. You know, sometimes where you have to really give all your love to get all the love back.
Yeah.
But yet in giving all the love, you take a risk, and you take you risk everything really. But that's what makes love so beautiful, and what makes relationships so beautiful. And if each time you get hurt, if you can love more and love more and love more, rather than pulling back and pulling back and pulling back, you know, how amazing would life be? I think we get hurt and we go, I don't want to get hurt, and we put up a wall, and you're never going to hurt me.
And all the stuff we miss out on, right? And that's a beautiful feminine trait as well, isn't it? It's coming from the heart and loving from the heart.
Yeah. And trusting your intuition there. You'll know if it's not right.
Yeah, definitely. Trusting your intuition. And also not controlling things. You know, the feminine embraces uncertainty and not having an outcome. Not loving because you want an outcome, just loving because.
Yeah.
You know, and I was just listening to the guru I follow, Sadhguru, and he was talking about friendships and relationships. And he says, these days, if we're not conscious, we love with the expectation of we're needy. So we love out of neediness. We don't love out of love. And so he says, because we've become wealthier now in the economy, we feel we don't need people, because why would we? We can do everything if we, you know, there's something called social capitalism in those poorer countries, because they need each other. Because if a child's sick, they need to get the community together, because they can't afford to just call a doctor. So the wealthier the society is, the less connected they are. And so and of course, and as we can see, the repercussions of that is the loneliness, the depression, etc. And I just feel with relationships too, it's the self-work is so essential, knowing my truth and standing by that. And because I know that, and because I love myself, genuinely love myself, and genuinely am connected with myself, that person can't take that away from me. I can just share that with them. And if that doesn't work, then it doesn't kill me, because I love myself. I know that my worth is not dependent on that person.
That's
and
so
I think
important.
that's the greatest lesson for me to have learned.
Yeah, massively. It's really interesting. At the very beginning of my relationship, I think and I did this for years, I was a person that I thought my husband wanted me to be, and I was not me. And yet I spread this mantra that I was like, I'm always in integrity, and I am who I am, and I don't care if you don't like it. But that was not true at all. I was completely being someone who I thought he wanted me to be. And I just remember waking up being exhausted from that thought or that idea once, and when I'm just going to be me, and he either loves me for it or he doesn't. And then, because this is tiring, wearing this mask is so tiring. And our love grew even more because, and I didn't even know if he was conscious that I did it. I don't even know if we've had this discussion, but I just remember being like, can't do this anymore. And then I stopped doing it and things got better. So it's just, yeah.
Yeah, amazing, right? Because then it allows him to be who he is as well, right? It's always that one, because if you wear a mask, it's almost like expecting that person to wear their mask too. And I do feel that this is a big thing, and this is really one thing I'm really working on to help women with, is the feeling of worthiness. We really have been taught to not trust ourselves. As I said, the feminine has definitely been undervalued and has been bastardized, and we've been punished for being feminine. Like we look at the era of the witches. I mean, it really carries through. And I mean, this is centuries ago, but this is how long it's taken, right? And that really to work with women and to remind them over and over again, you are worthy. Like you are worthy because you are you, not because you look a certain way, not because you are a certain way, just because you are you. You were born and you are human. And I think I found that that's our greatest challenge in the feminine, is really accepting ourselves and our truth. And when we do, man, watch out, because then we come out with love and the biggest hearts, and that's when our lives change.
Totally. And vulnerability is power. It's so much power.
I'm learning that. I'm learning that slowly.
It's not easy. Me too.
So tell us a little bit about the new course you've just done. First of all, thank you for sharing your...
Thank you. It's been great.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for sharing that. I also feel that sometimes there's such shame around saying, hey, our relationship's not okay and I'm not happy and I'm going to do something about that. Because once again, I feel that everything has to be perfect. Like this world has to be perfect, like perfect photos. Hang on, hey, it's not happening. And this is why I'm openly and honestly saying, hey, my relationship's not working for me. And even I printed out these questions, and in the top of the questions, I sent it to Doug because he can print it at work for me. And I was like, at the top of the questions, I said, I've been married for 14 years now, and my marriage has been totally flatlined. It's like a warm corpse. And I knew he would read that. That's just me being expressive, right? But I thought twice about it. I'm like, wow, is that really how I want him to think I think of our relationship? And I was like, yeah, that's actually how I feel, and I want him to know that. But maybe putting it in writing like that is not necessarily the best way. But he didn't respond. Like, he didn't say anything. He just said, oh, here's your questions. I'm like, oh, thanks. I was like, how's this going to go? This is going to be interesting. But I do want you to thank you for being honest with that, and opening up to us and showing us that there is no shame, and actually that there's real strength in saying, I want more from this relationship, and working at it instead of walking away.
Yeah. Oh God, I'm such an advocate for that, because I just think we've become this throwaway society. Like, it's even these AirPods that I've got, they're dying and they're 2 years old. It's just so we just throw them out and get a new pair. Like, it's just ridiculous, and that happens in relationships over and over again. And I've seen it happen with two really close friends really recently, and it makes me sad.
It is sad, and it's sometimes interesting to me to see them just find another person, different person in this same person in a different body,
just repeat the same patterns.
I'm like, hey babe, just start looking at you, like what's going to change you, It's amazing. But tell us about the new course. So exciting.
Yeah. So it's called Reignite the Spark, and it was designed for that. It's pretty self-explanatory. It was designed to bring the spark back into the relationship for couples. So it's 6 weeks. We've actually got our first group coaching call tonight with the group. I'm really excited.
Exciting.
I've met all the couples, and I really, my aim behind it was for people. Like, I've done group coaching, and I get so much out of it because I learn so much from the other participants as well as the coach. So I'm by no means the expert in everything. Everyone has such great knowledge, and I want people to be able to share their knowledge and get vulnerable with each other. And I also wanted the groups to be able to create a community beyond me.
Yes.
So that they can have support with each other beyond the 6 weeks. We're in week 2 now. So 4 more weeks to go with these amazing couples who have, I really do feel so honoured. They've been so honest. I think the point is sometimes when you get to rock bottom, the only way is up. And so I love the vulnerability and the openness and honesty that they've already shared with me about what's going on and what kind of support they need going forward. Because, yeah, if you don't have that, I always say to people, just like tell me how it is. Let's be honest. Let's get it all on the table.
Yes.
I hate elephants in the room because we might as well just start from where we're at. There's no right or wrong.
There's no
it's
shame,
just how
right?
it is.
Yes.
No, and there isn't though. Like it's, if I've got one goal in life, it's to be honest about my life, because I don't want people to, it's the same with me having a baby. We ended up having to do IVF, and before I did that, there was so much shame around it for me. And so I've been really honest with that journey, because I don't want people to feel shame around it, because there is no shame around it. That doesn't make me less of a woman. Like, you know, and I think it's the same with those relationships. I just want people to know that, you know, you can have, it can be really bad and it can get better, and, you know, we're just
can
human.
be great. Yeah, and it can
Absolutely.
be amazing.
Yeah,
it
have the goal to have a 10 out of 10 relationship, even if it means that you're going to separate at the end of that 10 out of 10. Because I would love, that's my whole goal, is to have couples get to 10 out of 10 at the end of the 10 out of 10. If you decide that you don't want to be together, you know, that's also an okay goal as to staying together.
Yes.
But it means that you've got to the point where you've both done everything that you can to make that relationship work.
And you've learned so much about yourself in the process,
Totally.
you know, and then you've made a conscious decision that this is not working, and that's cool. I love that. So where can people find out more about the course?
Yeah, so, well, it's closed for enrollments currently. However,
cool.
Hopefully we'll do it again. So either on my Facebook page, so my business is called The Relationship Circle, and my website's just relationshipcircle.com, and Facebook and Instagram are the same. So I put stuff up on all three of those platforms.
Oh, I love that.
Please follow me. You can follow, I'm Beck Thompson, so you can follow me individually as well, because I put a lot of stuff on my personal page that sometimes I'm not so good about putting on my business page.
I tell you, it's one of those things, right? The social media stuff.
Yes, it's a beautiful thing and a beast as well.
I have a love-hate relationship with
me
social
too.
media. My final question is often my favorite, is what is your red hot truth and how are you living it?
Yeah, oh God, my red hot truth is probably to be, one, to bring more fun into my life, and to just be, I know that when I'm happy, I'm going in the right direction. So I just consciously do things that make me happy and move away from things that don't. Because, and there's also nothing wrong with, this has taken me a long time to learn, there's nothing wrong with being sad or other emotions. They're all just as important as each other. But I know that when I'm following that happiness path, I'm going down the right way. So to always be truthful and honest and to be happy, that is my truth.
Yeah, and how are you doing that?
How am I doing that? Yeah, I mean, one, I just trust the energy that I feel when I do things. So with people and with things that I do, I love trying new things, but I'm not afraid to try something once ago that wasn't for me. I don't want to do it again. And with honesty, I think that it's just, again, I just have to be conscious and not afraid to be honest. And when I'm being honest, I am in my integrity and I'm living the truth. So just sharing that with people, even strangers. It's not, I don't think this, I don't believe in strangers anyway. I'm happy to talk at the lady at the top.
You know, so similar. My husband says, Petra, you could talk to the lamppost. I mean, honestly.
It makes me sad when I walk down the street and I go, morning, and someone doesn't say anything. I'm like, hello.
Oh, but people don't. That annoys me. And then I must walk with a smile on my face, because often people smile back at me. I must walk with a smile on my face because people often smile at me. I'm like, I must be smiling like some freak walking down the road.
It's one beautiful thing you notice. We've travelled a bit into like rural New South Wales, and it's one thing you really notice in those places. People are it's so different to Sydney.
Totally. And I travelled for work. Like I was running workshops around Australia in schools, and I got the privilege of going into these tiny, tiny places that I would never have gone to. Absolutely, the feel is so different. The community mindedness is so different. And so that's another thing, with couples maybe is get out of your own environment. Get out of your own environment, because it's the city. There is. I love the energy of a city, but there's also a cutthroatness of it. Well, there's a very masculine energy in the city, very masculine.
Yeah.
So it's important to get out of that again.
Totally. Yeah, we feel ourselves as soon as we drive out of Sydney, we're a different couple.
Yeah,
that's to the point we want to move out.
Around. Well, there we have it. Look, ladies, truth sisters who are listening, I mean, you've heard Beck's story now, and you've heard us share from the vulnerable place. And, as always, I encourage you to take one thing that you heard today and to implement that into your life, because that's how change happens. It's not throwing the baby out with the bathwater. It's just that one little thing that you took on, and share that with us. I mean, share that in the comments and share that with Beck and I. Please, share this interview with your friends, because I know there are so many women out there and men, and I feel many women going, I want more than this, and there is more, and there is help. I mean, Beck is here to help. So please, guys, share this interview, comment, let us know what you thought of it. And once again, as I always say, your time is now. Have a wonderful time, everyone. Thank you for listening. Ciao.
Thanks, everyone.